My name is Peter, recovered alcoholic. I'm grateful to be alive and sober and part of a sacred place called Alcoholics Anonymous. And again, thank the group for having me back here to share my experience, strength, and hope on the message that was freely brought to me. June 23rd, 1988 is when a loving God separated me from alcohol. And it's been a wonderful ride thus far. And I do have a sponsor. His name is Bob Bazans out of St. Paul, Minnesota. And I belong to just a wonderful, wonderful home group in Boca Raton. No problems, just solutions. And we meet on Wednesday nights at 7:30. So come on down and visit us. We have a little big book study there. And it's I've watched this group just explode over the last year. And there's a lot of soul music before the meeting starts. And when it ends, it's the same thing. And it's the chatter of Alcoholics Anonymous members who are excited about this life. And I'm so grateful for that. I will tell you, I still love going to meetings. I love being around this. And I like being part of the community of Alcoholics Anonymous. Looking forward to conferences and workshops and local meetings and just all of it. I really enjoy when I meet a newcomer who, especially those who haven't been to AA yet, where they don't have a head full of knowledge and then start telling me how to stay sober 10 minutes into the conversation. I love the guys you sponsor. They tell you how to sponsor them, too. This is great. But I love the real green recruits. And you can sit and talk with them, and they're teachable. And it's this purpose-driven life we have here. There was a time in my journey in and out of treatment where I didn't see the sacredness of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't experience the sacredness of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know it was a Band-Aid on an open wound when I finally arrived here in 88. But I just knew something was different upon my arrival in June of 88, that I felt safe for the first time and I felt that was going to be okay. And when an old timer would tell me, hey, you look good and sound good, I did get attached to that for a while, but it was like better than you drunken bum, don't come back here anymore. And when I would share things that were really eating my lunch, and everyone would nod their head and say, yeah, me too. And people would share things that I was afraid to share, and they would say, yeah, me too. I says, I know I didn't get that out there. I didn't even get it in treatment, but I'm getting it in here. There was a time when I would sit in treatment and I resented recovering folks. And when I was out on the streets, and every once in a while the Bible beaters would come by and say, Jesus love you and find the Lord, I hated them. And it wasn't Jesus, and it wasn't the Bible, and it wasn't the message. It's just that I wanted to be like them, and I knew it was never going to happen. So I despised. And things that I didn't know, I would fear, and because I fear, I would find contempt for. And I was so dark. I was just thinking about this. I was in New York last week, and just being around New York and flying into New York, a lot of the memories came back, both good and not so good. And I was sitting in my hotel. I was kind of sick last week, thinking about all of this on how dark I was. My soul was not ignited yet. It was there, but not ignited yet. I had contempt for a lot, hate for even more. And the only reason why I've gotten saved is not because of good deeds I've done, which are very little, but God's mercy, which is very much. And didn't care about, the scars on my back and the people I have harmed, because he was going to give me a way out and get back and fix that. It was just one of his kids who were lost, the lost sheep, which is what you all are, quite frankly. And he went out and got me and sent the soldiers out there to get me. And I think that's why 12-step work is so vital in Alcoholics Anonymous. We probably all could do a better job of that. But this fellowship, I would sit in treatment, and H and I would bring meetings, and I think it's the coolest commitment of all that. Next to greeting, which it sounds silly, but with on the front lines, we don't know who's walking into the first meeting ever. And if I look like I just committed a felony, that's not a good commentary for the group. Or maybe it's an anniversary and family members are coming in, want to check us out, and they see the greeters looking polished and shiny. That's a good way to go. We meet a lot of new folks that way. But H and I have such tremendous respect for. I've had that commitment a couple of times in my journey, but there was a time when I would be sitting in treatment and H and I would come in, and I hated them for bringing a meeting in. It was an inconvenience to my busy schedule in treatment. It was affecting my TV time, or just doing war story time, or trying to find a wife. I mean, whatever it was. And I was so negative and dark, and I didn't like so much, just so much, that they came in to bring a meeting and they looked clean cut. They had jobs. They were excited about life, and they had that thing we get, that little gleam in the eye. When we laugh at all the travesties we've gone through, oh, I got arrested too. Yeah, me too over there. You know, that kind of stuff. And we're laughing about it. And I didn't appreciate that so much. How could you laugh at this? Don't you know how bad my life is? And I would hear some of their stories, and they were worse than mine. And how do you get from where I am to where you are? And I knew it was never going to happen for me. And so I was met with severe depression, not clinical depression, but situational depression. And it was mostly poor me's took me to a place of severe self-pity and suffering and pain. It was all internal. And I knew I wasn't getting out. It's a terrible place to be. And, you know, I'm sure many of us have been there, sitting in a detox or treatment center, knowing this is not going to work. Whether I was dragged there or I said, okay, I'll go, knowing that I know what I'm going to do because I can't stop doing it. I want to stop. I have a powerful desire to stop. I find out in the big book it means nothing. No avail. I want to stop. Now I want to stop. I don't want to live this life anymore. And as soon as I get discharged, my first move was to run to the liquor store and figure out how not to drink anymore. How to get my life together. I'm 20 in my late 20s, and I don't even know how to look for a job. The only job I had, real job, was given to me by my dad to become a longshoreman. There was no test to take. Okay, this is your job, 8 to 5 every day, make a lot of money, and you can retire with this, and I blew it. I don't even, and I'm embarrassed to say this to some degree, I don't know how to date. Because when I'm out on the street, there's no dating. You got drugs, let's go to bed. I'm not trying to be insensitive. Or there's nobody in your life. There's a time where you can't even physically perform anymore. Because I'm so riddled with all the stuff that's going in my body. I have no interest. I have one interest. How do I get money to get more whiskey and eat pills? That's it. And if a Bible beater showed up or I landed in treatment and the H&I folks would come in, I hated them all. Because at the end of the day, the one I despised was me. My brothers and I are as close as you can get. I would lay down my life for my brothers. And they would do that for me. And there was a time when I was in and out of treatment where I hated them. My brother moved off to California to become an actor. I love entertainment. I was in music for a while. There was a part of me I always wanted to be get into acting, and I got into writing for a while, and he was doing it. My other brother went to Wall Street and killed it on Wall Street. Became an instant overnight success. And he would go to work in a shirt and tie, and he bought the house and had the car, and I hated him for it. When my brother got his first Christmas bonus, way back when, early 80s, a $25,000 Christmas bonus, 82, 83, that's a lot of money. Instead of being happy for him, I character assassinated him in my mind. That's where I'm brought to. And my dad, who saved my life, quite frankly, kept me alive long enough to get to you. I hated my dad as well. This is not a good way to live life. The conversion happened for me in Alcoholics Anonymous, where I realized how much I love them and how important they are to me. And how do I build a bridge back to that? How do I even get back into the family's graces again? Because they've heard every I'm sorry. So my sponsor said, you just walk this out. Walk softly and carry a big book, he told me. And so when I'm here in 1988, I am not just recovering from another drunk. I have a lot of emotional stuff going on. I remember the counselors and the doctors wanted to medicate me because they says I was stoic. There was no emotion. There's a clinical term for that. I forget what it's called. But I couldn't laugh and I couldn't cry. There was nothing. No matter what was going on, it was just nothing. Nothing was going in. I couldn't feel anything. Other than I'd rather just die right now. So I'm suffering from alcoholism and I'm not drinking. And I get out of treatment and I go to a halfway house, a three-quarter house, and a sober house, and a whole year passes. And 6 months-ish out of that year, I'm in full-blown alcoholism, but I'm clean and sober. Because my alcoholism doesn't come in a bottle of whiskey. Now I'm hearing a lot of the AA language, first things first, easy does it, little quotes out of the big book, and I'm memorizing this. And I could raise my hand and quote some of that, and somebody would say, that's pretty good. But I did that in treatment. I knew that's not the way to go. Something deep in my gut says, just keep your mouth shut. Because I don't want to walk around as a head full of knowledge and quoting and a belly full of beer and drunk. I can't do that. I can't survive it. And there was something down in my soul that says, you won't survive it this time. And not only I won't survive it, but I know my story, and I am the type of guy to blow up overnight and then linger on the streets for a while before I just either took my life or I did something and my life was taken. That's just how I go. I'll just linger out there for a long time in the same clothes, homeless, with degradation, humiliation, people seeing you and crossing the street, and the phones aren't, no one's picking up the phone. It's just like that. Well, you just want to blow your brains out. There's something in the book, I just thought of it. It says this on page 25. It says, if you're seriously alcoholic as we were, that was an easy one for me to get. It took 7 treatment centers for me to go, yep, I'm just as bad as everyone in this room. I don't mean bad people, but bad alcohol, real alcoholism. Not heavy drinker, not moderate drinker, not weekend warrior, the real deal. We believe there's no middle of the road solution. I don't know what that means. What is a middle of the road solution? Someone told me it's any instructions that I get that don't show me how to have a spiritual awakening is a middle of the road solution. So now I was being told a lot of things, and what God did for me was close the ears to the mind, open up the ears to the soul. I'm attracted to people who were talking in profound language with ways to get out of this. So when I would hear don't drink, go to meetings, that was nice. I get it. I know what you're telling me, but that's not going to work. And somehow I just knew that. I was being told back then, make a meeting a day, 90 meetings in 90 days. That's great information. It's lovely. But I knew that's not going to keep me sober. Because what happens if I make 89? What if I get the flu? And I make 80 in 90. Do I fail the AA test? And if I make 309, because there are a lot of those guys, I made 300 meetings in 90 days, we'll build a statue for you. And it could be top heavy in fellowship. The soul is still looking for food. It says I was in a position where life was becoming impossible. It was unmanageable. And what was really frightening, folks, was this. As I said, I'm sober, going to AA meetings, and my life is totally unmanageable. I'm bathing, I'm shaving, I'm getting a haircut, I have clean clothes on, I got clean sneakers on, I got clean jeans on. After being homeless, I would wear jeans and wash them and dry them and put them back on. I couldn't wear them 2 days in a row. Now, after being homeless, I got to feel clean clothes on me. So I'm doing all these things. I'm eating. I used to love running. My whole high school life, I love running. I start to do a little bit of that, and I'm still completely in untreated alcoholism. Got a little sober job, making a couple of bucks. I can go to the store and buy myself something. Completely untreated. There was a time I remember I was in Minnesota and the winter was rolling around, and my dad finally sent me some money to buy a winter coat. And I was in this sober house. And they got the money, and they gave me so much I had to bring back a receipt, otherwise there'd be consequences. So I take the money, and I walk about a mile or so into town, into Hastings, a little men's clothing store. I have to buy a coat. Winter jacket. And I walk in, the salesman said, "Can I help you?" And I froze. I said, "No, I'm good." And I'm walking around, and there's some people shopping, and I know they're saying, "That's him. That's the drunken bum from that sober house in Hastings. Look at him." I'm dying, and I realize I don't know what size I wear. I don't even know how to try on a jacket, and I got to get out of here. And out the door I went. And I walked back to the house, and she said to the counselor, "How'd you do?" And I'm embarrassed to say I fell apart. I'm 28 years old. I'm crying out of humiliation because I don't even know how to buy myself a jacket. I'm 28. I don't know how to shop for myself. She rallied up a couple of guys, and they got in the druggie buggy with me. I'm sure the store owner was thrilled when 15 junkies got off the van and walked into the store. You know, he took out the guy. And this guy, Eddie T, said, "Come with me." He was like a big brother to me. He said, "Let's find your size." Okay, you're a 40 or whatever I was at the time. He says, "This is your size. What do you like?" "I don't know, that one." Put it on. It was warm. He said, "Let's go pay." And I walked. Forgive me. I walked out with my first winter coat. Now, I wore that thing until I came back to New York. And it didn't fit anymore. There was a lot of style. But I had that coat in my closet, I would say 10 or 15 years into sobriety, because it was my sober coat. And I wasn't going to give it away. Every time I would look at it, it had so much meaning to me. And then one day, I remember thinking, I wonder if there's someone out there who's in a position I was, who can use a coat. And so I went to the local church, and they have like these little places you can bring clothes to, and I dropped it off, and I know how to shop for myself now. As silly as that sounds. Alcoholics Anonymous has given me a little grace and dignity, and hopefully a little maturity along the way. You'll have to ask my wife about that one. It says, we have passed into a region or an area from which there is no return through human aid. This is so important. So the love of a spouse, a sibling, children is not going to keep me sober. It might bring me to AA, it might get me to treatment, but it's not going to work in the long run because this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. No human aid. I've experimented human aid. All of us, many of us have. I met a nice person. This is going to be different this time. You know. I looked at my kids and I can't do it to them anymore. It's not going to work. And it says I have two choices here. Go on to the bitter end, which is what all of us know on the way in here, or accept spiritual help. And I was saying a moment ago, I wasn't thinking about spiritual because I heard religious. I'm a Catholic, cradle Catholic. But you said spiritual, I thought church, monastery, just all the things that go over very, very religious kind of lifestyle. And I said, I hate God right now. I'm not buying this. I'm not doing this. In 1988, that didn't scare me anymore. In fact, how do you get there? How do I get from here to the spiritual way of living? And it says we did it because we honestly wanted to and are willing to make the effort. That's any length. I honestly wanted to know what you're doing. When the H&I folks came in when I was in Minnesota, or they took me to an outside meeting, I wasn't in the front, but I was as close as I can get without feeling too uncomfortable in the front to hear what a speaker was saying. And I wanted to do what they told me to do. I was following orders. So when my sponsors eventually said to me, "Are you willing to go to the length?" "Yeah, what do I do? Just tell me what to do. I don't want to stay here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore." Pray. Okay, I'm praying. And remember the first time I got on my knees, I'm waiting for thunder to strike and the earth to swallow me up. Nothing happened. I started to like praying. There was a thing I remember. I was in the sober house and praying one night, looking out the window, and where I was in Hastings, it was very clear. You could see millions of stars. And I remember thinking, maybe God's hearing me for the first time. Maybe this God's paying attention to me for the first time. Maybe there's a way out of this, yeah? I was holding on to anything. I stayed away from the ladies. Too much distraction. And if you were talking about war stories, I went over there. If you're talking about the last drunk you were on and you're romancing it, I go over there. It was just done. I got to get away from this. I got to get around Joe, the old timer with 2 years. Because when you're counting days, 2 years is, oh my God, he's Jesus. So I'm painted into a corner, and God kept throwing out these little life rafts for me. And it's really unbelievable. When we're looking for it, we'll see it. I don't know if this ever happened to you. If you're in the market for a car, let's say a Cadillac, and you go online looking at different Cadillacs and, reading about Cadillacs. You want to be prepared when you walk in and I'm going to buy a Cadillac. And suddenly you're driving down the block and there's a Cadillac. Oh my God, another Cadillac. You start to see, you become Cadillac consciousness, I'm looking for people who are talking about this book. I know nothing about it. But they keep saying it's in the big book says this, and the big book says that. And they're talking about these activities, fellowship stuff. And they're talking about a God of their understanding. They're talking about what God did for them, what they couldn't do for themselves. They're talking about God's grace. God's grace. And okay, I'm in. I want to hear it. What do I do? And it's unbelievable because the doctor's opinion plus 43 pages brings me to page, Lord have mercy, 44, which says, if I honestly want to, I find I can't quit entirely, or if when drinking, I have little control of the amount to take, I'm probably alcoholic. All of that reading takes me to answer those two questions. And I know I'm not probably an alcoholic. I know I am one. And I needed a solution to get out. And thank God for sponsorship, because I don't know anything about this book. I can't go through this book on my own. I can't be accountable to me. I can't sponsor me. And eventually, this meeting ends at 9:30. We're going to go our different ways. If I'm new and all you go home, I'm walking, say, to my sober house or to my apartment, and I have maybe till tomorrow to meet up with you folks. We didn't have cell phones back then. I had to use a house phone, and that was cutoff time at 10 o'clock. Now, what do? I need something to hold me through. I need a connection here. And I'm thinking of the God of my religion. He says, well, that'll work if you're okay with that. But if a sponsor takes me through a chapter to the agnostics, which introduces a drunk like me to step 2. Well, that's what this book is about. Its main objective is to enable me to find a power greater than me, which is going to solve my problem, not just the drink issue, but my living problem, because I don't know how to live. I'm not drinking. I don't know how to do life. I'm completely unmanageable. I'm a raw nerve. Everything upsets me. I know everyone's talking about me. I'm walking around in the wreckage of the future. I'm leading with doom in everything I do. Moments, every once in a while, when I would finally get a sense of humor about something, a voice would say, how dare you be so happy? You're smiling, look at you. And what about your family who you can't be happy? And the book says God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. Everything in Alcoholics Anonymous I've been taught is counterintuitive. Even the good lessons my parents gave me, the good lessons the teachers did in school, AA contradicts basically all of it. One of them is, if someone offends you, go get them. AA says, no, forgive them. How do I hold on? Let go. How do you let go? Hold on. Time out. They says, what do you believe in, my sponsors? I says, I feel safe in the numbers. I feel power in the numbers. And that was my first contact, if you will, with a God. It was a group of drunks for good orderly direction. Pardon me. A group of drunks for good orderly direction. That was a God. So when I came here, I said, okay, you guys are going to tell me what to do, how to stay sober till tomorrow morning. And I used that. And as my sponsor's walking me through agnostics, which is just a powerful spiritual chapter, it's going to tell me how I find God. Even though I'm a Catholic and I was brought up with the carpenter and a lot of good lessons, it's going to tell me how to get from point A to point B. Because I want to get the God you're talking about, the one you're so sure about. How do I get there? We're going to tell you how we did it. What we need to do. It's very simple. I had to lay aside all old ideas. So everything I came in here with about God, they're saying it's not right and it's not wrong. We're not going to make that judgment call. We're just asking you to put it over here for a moment. I have a lot of bookshelves in my house. People give me books. I buy new books, and every once in a while, I take some off of one shelf, and I stack them on another shelf so I can put the new ones on the top. I'm not throwing them out, just making room for some new stuff. I have a lot of books with notes at home. I have just oodles and oodles of stuff I've learned over the years. When the book is used up, I don't throw it out. I get a new one and put that in front of me. They said, lay aside old ideas. And have a willingness to believe in something. And that's over and over and over again. Our literature says willingness. With enough willingness, a mustard seed of willingness. If I believe the mountain will move, it'll move. Because if I don't, if I'm not in a place of willing to believe, I'm just going to repeat the same thing over and over and expect different results. See, it was easier for me hitting such a horrific bottom. I didn't want to live my story anymore. I wanted to have a life. I was willing to exchange things that didn't work for something new that did. And my behavior was a direct reflection of the value I put on God and recovery. I didn't want to be that dirtbag guy anymore. Where am I going to find this God? Is it out there? Is it in church? Am I going to hear some speaker light me up? It's in church, it's out there, and some speaker will light me up. But really where I have to look is the last place I would think to look. It says the great reality. In Scripture says the kingdom of God is within. Bill just tweaked it a little. He says the great reality is deep down within. It's the same thing. It's in here. We're born with it. While Mama was carrying me around before I popped out, it was there. It's the last place I looked because we've all been programmed to go get life. Go do this. When you get that, you'll feel it. When you achieve this, you're going to arrive. And that's how I'm programmed. And he says, no, don't do any of that stuff. That's nice to get, but it ain't going to work. It ain't going to keep you sober. If you want to feel real peace and harmony and one with others, go in. Except there's a lot of blockage. A lot of stuff in the way. But I'm willing. It was the light at the end of the tunnel. And why should I do this? Well, you're all talking about it. How could I doubt a room full of 50 people, 100 people saying, yeah, we got to God and we've been staying sober and life we're traveling light with all the bumps in the road. That's why I should do it. When I see other people solving their problems with the simple reliance upon the Spirit of the universe, how could I doubt God anymore? Speaker after speaker after speaker would say, yeah, and then I found this relationship with God and everything changed. And I'm sitting in the back of the room and I'm marinating in the pan. Okay, I'll do it. It just came to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. Before I'm even willing to believe in that, I had to first believe, come to terms with, in my gut, that what I'm doing and what I have done is completely unacceptable. It's not good anymore. I don't even want to hear it anymore. I've gotten to a place on most days, I would love to tell you every day. Okay. On most days, that the sound of me, that self-will guy, or the actions of that self-will guy is repulsive. I don't want to talk to him. And I hear it. Sometimes something's going on, usually when I'm watching the news. I become General Patton sometimes. Very interesting. I can hear that guy. That self-righteous guy. I know what everyone needs guy. I'm better than I've risen above that. I don't like that guy. Because that guy's got a drink in his back pocket, a pint in his back pocket for me. That's just simple awareness that's given to me by this power called God, purely out of mercy, to keep me away from me. Came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. It's an arrival. Some of us might come in and, boom, I'm in, I'm all good. For most of us, I'm one of them, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. For me, it was over time. Being exposed to a lot of you, been starting to help people and doing the step work and being part of the sacred fellowship, and you put the fellowship, you put the steps, and you put service together, and that circle around the triangle, which I came in here, was completely broken in a million pieces. Little by slowly, the gaps get filled. There's a couple of cracks in there still, probably will always be there, but it's not falling apart anymore. The resentments have been resolved, the trauma's been resolved, the fear gets resolved. The low self-esteem gets fixed because of my belief in God and what AA talks to me about. And suddenly, I don't have to come to believe anymore. I believe God could and would if he was sought. God can and has, because I knocked on his door. And then we get to go talk to someone about, I was just like you. I was a little skittish on it. I wasn't sure. I wasn't ready to go all the way in. I was nervous. How's my life going to look? How much is it going to change? It's really bad. But where are we going with this? I felt the same way you do, but I'm telling you from experience, I came to believe. I don't have to be a counselor, be the right political party, or have a certain amount of money. In fact, the more broken we are, the more less we got, the better. There's more room. It's one of those things in AA. More me, less God. A lot less me, a lot more God. I came in here not only literally with nothing, but there was empty in here. There's nothing other than hate. I think about that guy who hated so much. I'm glad was never a violent guy. I'm glad I was never a fighting guy, because I probably wound up in prison with the hate I had. I would punch walls. That was my thing. I just rage up and hit a wall and gash my hand open. My poor dad have to patch wall after wall after wall. Yeah. But I wasn't the go get somebody guy, but full of hate. And I go from calm to rage in a second. I don't raise my voice to my wife. I don't need to. And if I get upset, I won't. I'm not the most outgoing person. I tend to be quiet, close to the vest. Some people think, not here, but some people think, oh, he's, full of himself or stuck. I'm not the running for mayor in AA guy. It's just the way I'm cut, But I'm not afraid to be me anymore. If you get to know me, it's kind of like, come on in, let's hang out. It's just God's work for me. Am I willing to have God be everything or nothing? That's a big proposition when we're new and first time to the Word. Is God going to be everything or nothing? There's a book I study, and it says if spirituality doesn't touch every single area of my life, it touches none of my life. So I can't be spiritual at the 12-step house from 8:30 to 9:30 and I'm Moses, and as soon as I get out there, I'm like Joe Gigolo. I can't go from Moses to Rambo. It's got to be in everything I do. So when I'm home, or I'm in Publix, or I'm in the car, or I'm at the doctor's office, or whatever it is, it's the same guy. Some days better than others, firing on more cylinders, but it's the same guy. And I'm going to talk about God out there just as much as I like to talk about it in here. Even if these people aren't into God, I don't care. Maybe they will be. I usually like to end the conversation with God bless you on, and some folks are like, oh, he's religious. Yeah, I am. God bless you. Thank you. One guy told me, I'm an atheist. He says, good, God bless you, and walked away. My sponsor, Mark Houston, said, don't let anyone ever read your big book for you. And what he meant by that, don't let somebody come over to your big book and water it down and then interpret it for you and tell you, take what you want and leave the rest. I need all of it. No? Am I willing to have God be everything or nothing? What's my choice to be? Well, you know what? Go back to that. Go back to step one. There's no choice here. Bill is being just so delicate. You know, what's your choice to be? Because he knows I have an alcoholic ego. I better stroke this guy just a little bit. What's your choice to be, Pete? Meanwhile, I have nothing. I got no leverage. Okay, it'll be God. What else do I got? An abandoned building or sobriety, an apartment, and God. I'll take that. Just to wrap up, I will talk about this next week with step 3, but somewhere between 4 and 9, I didn't need an explanation. There's something that goes, you know, in the spiritual life, believing is seeing. The scripture says we walk by faith, not by sight. There's something about faith. You can present to me all the documents in the world how there is no God, and I don't have to debate with you. Great, that's good for you, but I have faith. In fact, I don't need documents to prove to me that there is a God because I have faith. The pilot light's been turned on. There's certain things in my I want to be careful our traditions in my Catholic faith about certain huge events that happen that defy science, and people have presented me it's impossible. I says, then you need a bigger God or a smaller you, whatever one, because I believe, I have faith that happened. You can't push on that. And the thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, it gave me faith in this God, even when I've doubted him. And I know this is the way out. I've been to therapy, incredibly helpful, but I knew this was the way out. I knew something in this book was going to take me to a God, and my God was going to say, okay, now we're going to move out. And you're going to use that stuff that you just went through to help him and pass it on. And thank the good Lord, I've been restored to sanity with alcohol. In many areas in my life that I could say, well, I'm not drinking, so I must be restored to sanity. What other areas of my life am I practicing sanity by repeating the same thing over, expecting different results? Bad relationship after bad relationship after bad relationship after bad relationship, bad job after bad job after bad. You get it? That hasn't happened to me. I'm not that good, but God is that great. That's all I got. Peace.